Hello, welcome to episode 243 of the 77 Club. Harry, start with the socials.
The Wall 77 Club on Facebook and Instagram, at 77 Club Podcast on Twitter. Please rate us 5 stars on Spotify as well. I'll keep begging, so just do it, please.
Nothing wrong with a beg. And Harry, you're also night outside a pub this week, it looks like. So we hope the Wi-Fi will stick it out. Bayliss is here.
Hello.
And Jack Williams.
Hello.
Harry, again, a game of football finishes involving Wolves. We're not really talking about the match, but we're talking about VAR.
Do you know what? I am actually, I know, you know what? It generates good numbers on our podcast, but I am bored of talking about it. It's getting past the joke now. I know the Spurs game was brilliant, but half the reason why was because we didn't have to talk about bloody VAR either. And we've had horrendous decisions all year. And then in the game on Monday night, we've had like 3 or 4 that have been absolute howlers. And it's just getting past the joke now. I don't know if it's a laugh or cry. And it genuinely, after the game last night, I've just thought, I don't know if I want to watch football again for a bit because it's getting absolutely stupid, especially in the Premier League.
Bayliss, who was forced into change with Santi Bueno starting, didn't think much of his contribution, to be honest. But I think it is overshadowed by things that are out of our control.
I for the last 24 hours in my head, I have thought of many things I was going to say, and I think they would probably get us cancelled pretty quickly. Including thoughts of arson, Wenger, obviously.
That's the first thing that came to my head as well.
Where do we start? Where do I start? It's every fucking week. We come on here and we want to talk about football, right? And I genuinely enjoy coming on here to talk about football. And I can't talk about the fucking football game because there are a load of arrogant, jumped up arseholes that are supposed to be doing a job that they clearly aren't good enough to do. We've spun these conspiracy theories about corruption and stuff. It's all I've got left. It's all I've got left. Either they are completely brain dead and they just don't have a fucking clue what they're doing, or there is some sort of stitch up going on against the teams that aren't in the top 6. Because I mean, I've listened to what O'Neill said afterwards. And is it right that the ref agreed with him that the first one wasn't a penalty?
Yeah.
Then go and look at the fucking telly that you've got on the side of the pitch, you daft twat. I'm going to shut up for a bit because I'll
wind him up and wind him up and let him go. Jack, I found the game confusing, mostly because of my IQ and also because I don't think anyone knew what was going on. You were at Craven Cottage. It must have been a very, very surreal experience for you because you don't know what's going on either. And the clear and obvious conversation that we always have surely goes out the window when you're having to take that long to look at something.
I mean, yeah, surreal, but none of it was at all surprising because I think we've just become to expect this now. And as soon as there's a little pause in play and they put up on the board a VAR checking this or doing that, you just fear for the worst because it seems, particularly as a Wolves fan, the calls are going to go against us really, whatever happens now. But a little bit before we get into all that, it was, it's a really difficult game to get excited for, a Monday night game, particularly away in London. And to be fair to the Wolves fans, I think we did really well. Like, everyone seemed quite up for it. It was a really quite a cold evening, probably one of the coldest games we've had so far this season. But everyone seemed up for it in good spirits. It was good turnout. It wasn't one of those games where you're looking around and there's just empty seats knocking about. It seemed like a good, full atmosphere. Everyone seemed quite merry and had a few beers before. And I think we generated a good atmosphere in a ground that has no atmosphere, to be brutally honest. I mean, their fans are just very, very quiet. Even when they scored, really, there was nothing going back between the two fans. So we had to kind of make the atmosphere ourselves and try and hype our own players up. I think for the most part, you did a good job of that. So I think the Wolves fans and the travelling support can be quite proud. Some of the players fed back into that as well. There were times where I remember when Cunha, I think it was trying to amp the crowd up after he won a throw in or something. I can't remember what it was, but we felt up for it. And although we started slow, I think the fans helped us, get back into the game and showed that we've got a bit of faith and that Gary O'Neill's earned a bit of trust, even when we're asleep for the first 10, 15 minutes and go 1-0 down, to be honest, because no one's got any complaints about that. We started slow, we go one goal behind, fair enough. But they're working quite hard to get back into the game, which we did. And I think both occasions where we got it back level to 1 each and then to 2-2, we had a bit of momentum. And the problem is our momentum then was either killed by half time or by VAR calls, which are just all over the place. From where I was stood, the 2 penalty calls for them were at the opposite end of the pitch. So as you say, I didn't really know what was going on. The first one I saw, the Semedo one, from where I was stood, miles away, like it's, you know how hard it is to see when you get the completely opposite end. I thought, oh, hang on, that looks like it was a penalty from where I stood. But then watching it back, you're thinking, but no, it's not, because he's gone in there, he's won the ball, he's planted his foot and not made contact with the other player's foot. And then if there's any contact, it's sort of initiated by the other player. Really, there's just no way you can look at that and think it's a penalty. But why they haven't sent him over to look at it, I don't know. And it just goes round in circles. It's just there's no consistency here. And the definition of clear and obvious is, if you're looking at last night's game and you're thinking basically the call which VAR got involved with, which ultimately gave Fulham 3 points at the very end, was deemed originally not to be clear and obvious. However, a clear headbutt on one of our players, where if Max Kilman rolls around on the floor, or if Max Kilman plays for Man City, that's pulled back immediately for a red card, and that's definitely clear and
on the
obvious.
night, I thought they played the game. I thought
so. I don't know what to say really. You're just left just like twiddling your thumbs again, and there's something in it now, because it's not just Wolves fans saying it; it's being picked up by other people in the media. Are like, well, what's going on with these Wolves calls? Because it's just every other week, or it seems like every game, there's something that goes against us, and it's costing us points. And Gary O'Neill, to be fair to him, everything he's saying and doing, he's doing it so well. He's being so level-headed about it, making his points really, really well, so he doesn't get slapped with a fine or something. But he's got it. I just feel for the bloke, because he's right. We should have at least 5 or 6 more points now, which makes a big difference to us, a big difference to him, and how well he's perceived to be doing. And he's just not getting any help from it. But it does make you think about conspiracies, because other parts of the media are starting to pick it up as well and saying, why is there this vendetta against Wolves? And if you're going to make calls like that and to win a game, that really, on the balance of it, I think a 2-2 draw, would have been fair. Nobody would really have been too upset about that overall, particularly after we clawed our way back into it. But I don't think we particularly deserve to lose that game. And the decisions and the lack of consistency is just disgraceful. But I've said everything there is to say on VAR this season, and we keep saying it, fans keep saying it, but it keeps coming back around, and it's the same thing, because they just don't know what they're doing.
Jack, it's 7 points, so we aren't far off now, being worse off than Everton, being screwed by the same people. So let's break it down one by one and go through it, right? Because I don't think this is particularly difficult. They've got a screen at the side of the pitch. They've got a load of idiots in Stockley Park and a ref on the pitch. So he sees the first one. It looks like a foul. He blows penalty. VAR look at it. They can all see that Semedo's made contact with the ball and tackled the guy, and they can see the guy's gone down. So there's a decision to be made between the referee and the guys at the VAR. Why hasn't he gone to the screen? He would have then seen it was a tackle, decent tackle. The bloke's gone down, trying to buy a penalty. Easy for me. That's under 3 minutes. So, anything else to add to that, or am I right?
And my question would be, sorry, Harry, it's just like, what are those VAR people looking at and telling him in this situation? If they're saying not to go to the screen, if they can see what everyone else is seeing, and they're saying, okay, he's actually won the ball there, and then doesn't appear to have made very much contact at all. Okay, what should we do with that? Oh, stick with the penalty. I don't understand how that process works. I want to hear the tapes again, really, because it just screams of incompetence. But
watching it on Sky, the first angle when he got the ball, they watched that really quickly when he clearly got the ball, and then they swapped to like a fourth angle where it looked like he just clipped the man, and then they just kept watching that one over and over and over again. So that's when they stuck with the on-field decision. It's almost like they ignored the one where he clearly got the ball, the first angle they had. So that's what baffled me with it. Because if he'd ran over to the screen and saw that first angle, he'd have overturned his own decision. And also, the three decisions he got wrong, right? So the Semedo one he gave at the time, he gave a yellow card for the Kilman headbutt. Yeah. And he, what was the other one? Oh, yeah. Ream, when he took down Hwang, should have got a second yellow. And he decided that wasn't a second yellow. All 3 of those, right, he got wrong. They should have been overturned. The one that he said wasn't a penalty, the winning penalty, VAR intervened and then obviously overturned it. So basically the referee was fucking hopeless, because every decision he made is now proved to be wrong because they've come out and apologised for each of those decisions. The referees are absolutely shit in this league. And we just seem to always get the shit ones and always get the ones who work in VAR who ain't got a clue either. And none of them have got the bottle to make the right decision, or they're just not capable of it. And I just can't believe it keeps happening. It's just getting out of hand now. Like, how can it just happen to the same team over and over again?
If you put us in the room and tried to look at it, fair enough, we'd be pretty biased, but if you look at it as objectively as you can, pretty much most football fans would have come to the same decision on these points. When you take away the most diehard of either fan base or complete arseholes like Jamie O'Hara, the rest of us would all come to a decent decision on it, wouldn't we? Like,
he was saying last night, wasn't he? He was saying that it's a penalty. It's
the
soft,
last one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The last one,
a lot of people have been split on that. A lot of people have been split on that, but I think that's I agree, Bayless. He's brought that. Gomez is doing everything he can to pull his leg away from that, and he initiates the contact. Wilson,
he comes from Gomez's blind side. Gomez pulls out the tackle and he just makes sure his leg clips him. You see it all the time. But the guy, unlike the first one, which is a good tackle, that one, the guy buys the penalty and it gets bought, but not by the ref, only by the VAR.
Yeah,
It's
the whole it's the on-field decision thing that doesn't make any sense to me, because the second penalty, or the third of the night, the on-field decision was no penalty. But then I don't get why they've found a reason to go back on what they're supposed to be going with and doing something else. It just none of it last night made any sense to me whatsoever.
It's all about where do you draw the line of clear and obvious, and it seems to change not just by game or by week, but by section of the match and by decision of where that lines draw. Because if a headbutt isn't a clear and obvious error that you're going to overturn, how can a dubious penalty like that, which he's looking for? My first reaction for the second penalty, bearing in mind both penalties were at the opposite end of the pitch to the Wolves fan. But the Smader one, I thought that looked like a penalty. The second one, I thought dive. I thought he's just flown in there and just completely looked for it. And the ref was right there and was like, no, straight away. And another thing that has come up a few times, and we said this in a few weeks now, is that it's really, really, really worrying for people who should be at the very top of their profession in officiating these games. I honestly think a lot of them think if there is contact in the box, it is a foul. That is not the case, because that's the first thing they look for. They don't look for, let's watch that in real time and see whether it was a foul or not. They say, did his foot touch his foot? There we go. It's a foul. It's immediately a foul. And that's not how football works. Football, if you want to just change the rules completely, because they seem to want to change every rule in the last 10 years anyway, they can keep wanting to change. And there's talk of bloody sin bins coming in now and stuff, nonsense like that, isn't there? But then just say it's not a contact sport. It's a foul if you touch another player. But that's where we're getting to. It's just ridiculous. So what do you do about that when that's the top level of officials in this country? The first thing they look for is, right, let's slow it down and see if his shoe touches his shoe, because that means it's a foul. And that is not the case. That is not how it works.
It's nonsense. If I was O'Neill now, I'd say to all the lads, the second you get in the box, anything you feel, just go down. Just keep going down. And if we have 3 men sent off a game for diving, don't matter. Just keep doing it.
Well, there's no reason for them not to, is there? And actually, when Max Kilman had a very, very good reason to go down or make a little bit more of it, he chose not to. And to be honest, we have sat here, I think, in previous years and looked at players on opposition teams who've dived and gone, it's pathetic. You wouldn't want your team to do it. But actually, I think when you're getting punished in the way that we are, when we're not sort of playing the game, it stinks a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah. Also with VAR, there's rumour that they're going to start checking corners and like throw-ins and that now. So we're just going to be watching VAR checks all game if that's the case.
Checking what? But, checking they've been taken correctly.
Checking like, so when it's a close one and like you don't know who it hit when it went out, like things like that, or if it's hit the wrong person.
Does anybody actually want this anymore? Who wants this? Who's this benefiting? Like, what is the point? It doesn't help to watch the game from home. It certainly doesn't help to watch the game from the stands. They say they get all the big calls right, but they don't, because they still get bloody Hawkeyes failed in the past for goal line technology, and they get offsides wrong just because they drew the line in the wrong place. So it's supposed to eliminate all these decisions, but now we're just getting all the same dodgy decisions, but we have to wait a bit for them, and it kills momentum and kills the game as a spectacle. So what is the point? It's just like a weird vanity project that they can't let go of now, even though it's just not worked.
I think that the crux of it
I think
is...
Sam-
oh, go on, Harry.
No, I was going to say, I think Sam's mentioned before VAR come in, I think it was like a 97% success rate. And last night without VAR, it'd have been 2-2 because we just wouldn't, they wouldn't have give that last penalty. And I just want to go back to that. I don't mind having the odd howler now because VAR is having way more howlers than it did when it was just normal referees and refereeing it. Keep the goal line technology on, even though that does break once in a blue moon like it did a few years ago. And just go back. It's just ridiculous now because we've on this podcast, we once spoke really about our performance. All that pundits talk about now is VAR. We're not really talking about the football anymore. We're just talking about these stupid referees who can't use a computer.
It's nuts, right? So I had a chat today with a mate of mine who's a big Forest fan, and this guy's played sport at like international level where he's had video analysis refs in the game, and even his comments are like, "Who cares? It's a game of sport. I'd rather have a few odd mistakes than wasting tons of time and sucking the joy out of it."
Yeah.
So if proper professional sports people are starting to think that, and they watching the sport, we all think it as proper football fans. Who are the people supporting VAR now? Because I don't know anyone.
Whilst it's being run by people and referees rather than just automated, just what you need now is just automate it for offsides. Don't have a human involved or anything like that. Automate it for offsides. Keep the goal line technology, and apart from for extreme cases of mistaken identity, that's it. There's no human interference because you get rid then of all the subjectivity and all the unconscious / sometimes we think just conscious bias, to be honest. And you're not going to get rid of that. You're not going to get rid of the big teams getting the big decisions while they're still sat there in Stockley Park, knowing what game they're watching and knowing that, oh, who's got clattered, at the last minute? Oh, it's the Wolves player, not the Man United player. So we wave that one away. It's they still do it, and it's not going to. While you've got these morons in charge, it's not going to do it. So let a computer do it and just limit its use as much as possible and let the game flow.
You've nailed it, Jack. Instead of it being one moron that makes the odd mistake, we've now got 5 morons that all make loads of mistakes. So unless it's just the computer doing automatic offsides and goal line, the rest of it's a waste of time.
No, I think.
Do you know what rubs it in even more for us? Sorry. Did you see Simon Jordan earlier calling out Gary O'Neill, saying it's funny how you only say it when they get it wrong? But the thing is, we ain't even getting any for us. People say it evens itself out.
No. What have we had?
It's ridiculous.
I can't wait. It springs to mind.
If we're about 8-0 down last game of the season with something to play for, I'm like, we could really do with all these coming and evening themselves out right now because I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening at all.
That saying has always been a myth as well. That's a thing that, like, if Man United get a dodgy call in the last minute and win a game, that's what they Man United fans say to justify it. Like, oh yeah, it evens out over the season. It doesn't. There's always a bias towards the top teams.
Of course it is.
And perhaps the London teams, to be honest. Yeah, maybe Neil Warnock was right. But yeah, you're right though. It's just sucking the joy out of the game for me. I mean, I've not been going as much this season, you guys know, as I have done probably for the last 15 years. And part of the reason for it is it's just not as enjoyable anymore because they brought in this stuff that's just limiting the enjoyment of the game, not for the benefit of the fans in the stadium. Like it just makes it, you can't really celebrate a goal anymore. You have to wait until they actually kick off before you can actually like think, okay, yeah, that's all right or whatever. And even then, there was quite a big break in play after the Gomez foul last night before they actually brought it back. And I thought that had just been waved on and had forgotten about it, really. I was concentrating on, can we get up the pitch and try and get something, even though, it was a bit of a game in the balance. But they played around for quite a while before it got brought back. And then as soon as they bring it back, you just know what's going to happen. Like,
imagine if we'd have gone at that other end and scored and then they put it back. That's what makes it a whole fart. It's a whole thing.
They were laughing and joking about on the sidelines anyway. So it's a joke to them, to the referees. They ain't bothered. They think it's hilarious, especially because Gary's been calling them out. And do you know what it's like? They're so clicky. There's just you have to have that sort of mentality to even want to be a referee in the first place. And they, how they all defend themselves then like a pack, don't they? You've seen Peter Walton just chatting nonsense, just changing his mind based on who's asking the question, like basically. I'm just sick of it. Let's talk about the actual game a little bit though, like you said, because that's 20 minutes of just talking about the same stuff we've spoken about for every episode of this podcast so far this season, and it's just boring. It's boring to watch it. It's boring to talk about it. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. The one final thing I'd say about it is that I think before it was brought in, brought in, I think they brought in for the wrong reason, because I can only ever think of like absolute howlers being offsides, and they were the ones that you were always arguing about in the pub, because you genuinely did go with the referee's on-field decision, didn't you, with penalties? And you go, well, it's a bit of a stinker, it's a bit soft, it's a bit this, it's a bit that. But yeah, I don't know. FIFA seemed to do fine with it. UEFA seemed to do fine with it. So yeah, it's just a Premier League problem, isn't it? Cunha scored a good goal though, Harry.
Yeah, great. And to tell you what, the run from Bellegarde down the right hand side as well,
brilliant
skill, hangs to the back post. It was a free header. But still, usually we criticise Cunha's finishing, and that was a great finish right into the bottom corner. And at that point, I thought we was going to go on and win and not have all the drama that was to come. And also Hwang hit the bar, didn't he, just before? So yeah, great header from Cunha. He's starting to really get into his stride now.
Baylis Hwang is looking like a more of a prized asset. I think every week we've been saying it most of the season. He was really unlucky, actually, wasn't he, in that first half when he pranged it against the bar, and you think actually he's not that far away there.
Yeah, he looked sharp. I thought Wolves, going forward, we looked sharp and we looked threatening. I thought that the first goal, we were very suspect at the back. No marking whatsoever. I don't know how that bloke waltzed through completely unmarked, but Fulham did the same for us for our equaliser, and then all hell broke loose. But do you know what? We've moaned about the third goal and the penalty. In all fairness, it was sloppy play from Wolves in the build-up to it.
Yeah.
There were too many turnovers in that sort of quarter of the pitch between the halfway line and our box. And we did that 2 or 3 times, and we were always going to get caught out with it. So that, aside from moaning about the actual decision, I think Wolves gave the ball away in that area far too much throughout the game. But then again, it bought us the goal. You know, it was a couple of quick passes. One nearly got intercepted that caused the first goal. I don't think we did enough to win it, to be honest.
No,
I
agree.
I know we've talked about the VAR and stuff, but I don't think Wolves did enough to win it. We had some good opportunities and we played nicely in periods, but it wasn't one to write home about.
It was quite a strange game, wasn't it? It seemed that they had good spells, then we had a good spell, and it kind of went back and forward. I do stand by the fact that our momentum was killed a few times for things outside of our control, which really didn't help. But as I said, the first 15 minutes we were very sloppy, and they were all over us. Deserved to go in front. I think Hwang hitting the bar sort of then sparked a bit of life into us, and we got back into it, obviously, with a great bit of skill from Bellegarde, and then that Cunha goal, which, as Harry said, did everything right, just headed it down, didn't he, and placed it perfectly. And then from that point, I thought, right, we're going to get back into this now. The crowd's up for it. We think we're going to come back from behind, and half-time didn't help us, and then the VAR certainly didn't help us for anything really in the second half. But I think second half performance on a whole wasn't great, to be honest. We were quite quiet. The substitutions didn't really help us very much, I don't think. Hwang overall had a quiet game. I was very worried about the penalty because it looked, I don't know if you guys saw it on the telly, it looked like Cunha was supposed to take the penalty and Hwang took the ball off him. And whenever that happens, whenever there's an argument about who's going to take the penalty, I'm usually, like I said to the bloke next to me, I was like, whenever they start arguing about it, it's usually a bad sign. But he just smashed it straight down the middle and buried it. Fair enough. But even from that point, we probably didn't do enough in those last few minutes to try and go on and win the game, and that ultimately kind of ended up costing us. But I don't think we deserved to lose that game at all. At the same time,
sorry, Jack, I've just seen that comment from Chris Rogers there saying 1 week we have a class Sarabia sub. This week we had Doherty. I thought one of the best chances we created in the game was Doherty.
It was through him. Mm.
Yeah.
Chet Bailey. I saw him getting loads of stick, and I thought he was all right when he come on. I know he was left back, so that it unbalanced just a bit. And I can see why people wanted Hugo Bueno on. And he switched to the right, didn't he, at some points? But I thought he was good. I was really shocked when I saw some criticism for him. Like you said, he scored on that one. I understand like people baffled about Sarabia. After the way he was against Spurs, for him not to make an appearance was a bit weird. And he's been commenting on Instagram, hasn't he? He commented on the official Wolves Instagram with a puzzled face, like why we're not brought on. But yeah, substitutions probably weren't the best from Gary O'Neill. I thought Sasha, who I'm a huge fan of, didn't do much when he come on either. So it wasn't to be. I think a draw would have been fair without the VAR stuff.
Yeah. I was trying to think of this earlier. There wasn't really a standout performance, I think, from any of our players. There was like a few 6 out of 10s, a few 7 out of 10s, but there was nobody like you may say.
Bellegarde was the only one.
Well, but in spells, like I don't think he was.
I thought Hwang and Lamina, but Lamina was clumsy for the Semedo penalty.
He gave the ball away too much.
He give it away. Yeah, but I thought Lamina overall was good, and I thought Hwang looked sharp as well. But apart from that, Bellegarde obviously for the assist. But yeah, I agree. I thought Santi did okay. He weren't horrendous,
Considering,
was he?
yeah.
He didn't
Yeah,
like
it was all right.
stand out
Yeah.
bad. Yeah.
And I like the fact that that's the call we made, and we were like, right, centre backs out, so we bring in another out and out centre back. Because I had visions of, I don't know, like Johnny coming in the 3 or something. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen, but no, I think it was the right choice, and he did okay. Also, shout out to Jose Sarr, which is weird when you've let in 3 goals, but
Well,
like,
2 penalties.
what could he really do about any of them? The first goal is so sloppy; it's not our fault, but he made some good saves, and he gave them an absolute telling off, like after we went 1-0 down, which I think did help a little bit because he was getting angry, particularly when they nearly went 2-0 up before we'd even scored. So I think he had a decent game, to be fair, on the whole, even though, letting 3 goals, but what could he really do about them?
Very good point. Let's move on now to Arsenal, Harry. And, we didn't actually have many cards in the last game, but unfortunately the 2 players that did get booked got their 5th bookings of the season. So Lamina and Gomez will be out. Craig Dawson is available again after his suspension for picking up 5 yellow cards. How do you see Gary O'Neill setting up this one at the Emirates? Because this is a mammoth test. They're top of the league. They're in Europa League action this week, so they're playing on the Thursday. What do you reckon he does? He's got to pick up his players again, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think Tommy Doyle will come in. Maybe Babacar Traore if he's fit. I don't know if he's fit though. And obviously Dawson will come back in. And it's counter-attack, baby, isn't it? It's soak up the pressure, try and nick something. Unless he's got some kind of genius tactic he wants to play. And it'd be just like Wolves to go and win this because we've been struggling against Luton, Sheffield United, Fulham. But against the big boys, Spurs, City, we seem to do something. So just be typical Wolves, wouldn't it, that we go and get something. But I'm not holding my breath, I'll be honest. But it'd be a shame not to have Lamina and Gomez run it because they have been pretty good for us.
Yeah. Sorry, Champions League. I meant that's just force of habit saying Europa League in action on Wednesday night. And we're doing the podcast today earlier, so I'm just a little bit confused. Bayliss, for you?
We're running out of players pretty quickly, aren't we?
That is true.
I was going to say Jack's going to get a call up, but I'll take Dazzling Dave instead.
Yeah.
I've got to be what you said, right? I think you've got to play Doyle in place of Lamina, but I think it's starting to look looking a little bit imbalanced. I'd go for the smash and grab. Just try and get it to 0-0 half time if we can, and then try and shit ass one. Get the big lad on for the last 20 minutes.
Jack?
You got to do the 3 in midfield, and it's going to be the probably the only 3 that we've got available, isn't it, really? Aït-Nouri, I'm guessing, is going to be out for a while. So it'd be interesting to see if there are any changes to that or whether he sticks with Doherty. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't get that much more difficult than this in recent years. They've obviously had a very good season last season, had a good start to this season too. Battered us last day of last season in this same fixture. So I don't know. It's going to be a difficult one, particularly. It's one of those where we could go there and perform, but I think with some of the players we're missing, that really doesn't help the cause at all, does it? To be honest with you, but we'll see.
Yeah, like I say, it would be interesting to see what the bench looks like. Because obviously, I mean, it depends also how far Neto is off the pace as well. Because I think it's probably going to come too soon for him this time around. We're probably going to be looking at the week after, and obviously the usual congested Christmas period coming up, which I can't believe we're talking about already. But there you go. Harry, score prediction.
I think we'll lose 2-0.
Bayliss.
The optimist in me thinks 1-1. The realist in me thinks about 4-0 Arsenal.
Excellent. So an improvement on the last game of last season. Jack?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I'd really, really like to go there and win.
Just love it.
I can't see it, but it's just, it's one of those where I think I was going to say 2-0 as well. So I'll go 2-0, but let's see what happens. It's I don't want to say it's a free hit because we should be looking to at least compete with every team in the league. But I think it's one that we can go there and on our day get something. But looking at the way it's shaping up and the way we're playing against 12 men, aren't we, as well? Because we've got to play against the referee and we've got a few players out in the middle of the spine of our team. So, what chances have we really got if it's 0-0 in the 93rd minute and they get a penalty shout? Like, it's just, just chalk it up. It's pointless.
Yeah. Written in stars. Take us to 10 points at the road, and then we will be at Arsenal. But one Arsenal player, Harry, that I think we've been linked with quite closely actually this week is Ramsdale, a goalkeeper potentially arriving in January if the reports are to be believed. He's fallen out of favour with Arteta. Raya was obviously brought in from Brentford, and the idea was to have two world-class goalkeepers. But I think didn't Aaron Ramsdale do an interview with some sort of podcast and said that he finds it hard to concentrate sometimes. Is that right? Yeah. Have you seen that? Yeah,
it was with Ian Wright, wasn't it? And he said like he just gets distracted by like birds and that, which is weird. But Ramsdale started against Brentford in their 1-0 win the other day, so he's been back in. And this rumor come about because apparently Jose Sarr's linked with Saudi Arabia and moved to Saudi Arabia. So that it's just paper talk. I mean, I'd take him. He's a bit wild, isn't he? And gets distracted by pigeons, but he's a good keeper, so I'd have him.
I'm not a fan, to be honest. I don't think there's anything in this. I don't know where this has come from. I haven't actually seen the reports or the sources, but I don't think there's anything in it, and I don't particularly. I'm not going to say I don't want him because obviously he's a good keeper, but there's always, like you say, a mistake in him, or when he gets distracted, or sometimes just a bit of a strange one, isn't he? Sometimes, but that thing you said about birds, Harry, doesn't really help the cause.
His stats when compared to Sarr are nowhere near. Nowhere near.
Yeah, well, I suppose is that encompassing a season relegated with Sheffield United, relegated with Bournemouth, title challenge for maybe 3/4 of the season with Arsenal.
Still the same size ball and the same size goal.
Does Ramsdale kick it to their striker? Like, does he just give it straight to him?
I mean, the bar is fairly low in terms of distribution between the two of them, to be fair. I mean, I do shit myself every time he touches the ball, but that's just me.
I also hate him after... Do you remember Arsenal came and won at Molineux? Was it last season or the season before?
Twat, yeah.
I thought they'd won the Champions League, so he can fucking do one.
Is he an Albion fan? Is he an Albion fan?
Probably.
Is that true?
Probably.
Is he?
He's from Stoke.
Nah, I don't think he is. He's Stoke
Final
fan.
nail.
There you go.
I don't want him.
Don't want him anyway. Let's get your latest betting odds and ticket news.
Yeah, betting odds exactly as you would think.
Excellent value.
Just to give you an idea. So 4-0 Arsenal and Martinelli to score first is only 50-1. Yeah, I did a little bet builder just to keep it interesting and not try and put too much on it. But Cunha to score in 90 minutes, under 3.5 goals in the game, and both teams to score in the second half. Yes, is 29-1.
Nice.
Keeps it sort of open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of scorecasts for you. 2-1 Wolves win. Hee-Chan with the first goal, 185-1.
That is long.
And do you know what? I did the other one earlier and I forgot. But is Bellegarde able to play on Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the ones who can.
He's the
midfield.
Yeah.
Just making sure. Only because it was ridiculous odds. Bellegarde to score first, a 1-1 draw, 230-1. So I think whatever you do in terms of a scorecast, if you think Wolves are going to get a result, a draw, or pinch it, there's tons of value in it.
Excellent. And I believe that every time we've played top of the league this season, we've won. So, yes, there you go. Like that.
What about every time we play bottom of the league?
We don't talk about it. We're not playing them. We're giving their first points of the season, I think.
Exactly, yeah.
Trevor says that Ramsdale is a boinger. So I think he may well be an Albion fan. So there you go. That rules him out. Let's move on to Everton. Harry, Jeff Shee is a genius. We have avoided FFP problems. Arsenal, with their one count of naughtiness, have got a 10-point deduction, which means City will be liquidated, I think, due to their allegations against them, 115 charges. But first, on the Wolves angle of this, do you feel a little bit vindicated after a difficult summer and a difficult some with not only just players but also the manager as well in that situation is that it seems to have gone quite well, and that picture of Jeff Shee holding that cup of tea has been used many times with Everton's situation.
Yeah, they've come across well, haven't they, folks? And it's done them a favour, Everton having this deduction. Because in the summer, people were accusing them of not wanting to spend money. And if they genuinely did have FFP concerns, which you've got to believe, we're not calling them lawyers, but it did feel a bit fishy at the time. You've got to say they've come out of it really well, and fair play to them.
Yeah. Baylist, I was shocked when it came through on the breaking news that, I thought it didn't really happen to founding members of the Premier League, certainly only the Portsmouths of the world. But do you think it's unfair? I mean, there seem to be a few holes in it because some things were to do with interest payments on stadium redevelopments, and they shouldn't have been counted towards it. But they've got a couple of lawsuits coming down the line to add insult to injury, haven't they?
What's the question?
They've got some lawsuits coming down the line, haven't they?
Apparently so. I don't know. They're paying accountants to do these things. I'm sure one of the big four accountancy firms have fudged the books on it and tried to get it through, and they've been caught out. That's what happens, isn't it? They were found guilty of a charge, and it's to do with accountancy. Surely it's either right or wrong. The rules were in place, and they've breached it, so they're going to get done. It's a bit harsh that it's 10 points, because isn't that what you get for administration? Or is it more than that?
Depends on the league, I think. I think it's different depending on... I'm not sure.
How many teams are in the
Portsmouth
league?
got -9 back in 2010 for going into administration in the Premier League.
Yeah, a bit of inflation.
It's a cruel mystery.
I mean, the rules are there for everyone, and they're not very good rules because it allows certain clubs to completely and utterly take the piss. But surely someone at Everton has done something wrong to be found guilty of this. And it's silly that they've done it. Because originally it came out that they were moaning about the Richarlison payment. Is that right? But that's proven not to be correct. No. I haven't heard the thing about the stadium loan or anything to do with that yet. But...
Jack, were you shocked and or surprised?
I was both of those things, to be honest, because these things, points deductions for these sorts of financial breaches, seems to get talked about a lot, but no action ever really happens. And the fact that it's Everton who've had the first real pushback on this, rather than say, I don't know, Man City or Chelsea or someone like that, they've really sort of laid down a marker now. And I can see why Everton fans are agree with it, really, because if it whatever happens with the Man City thing, which I think is still ongoing for about 100 odd charges of various things, if at the end of that Man City just get a little fine and get away with it, then it's just not going to make any sense. It's just going to look really bad, because you can't be seen to apply different punishments depending on whether the team is the best team in the world and like a big part of your brand and your Champions League winners, so to speak, that you don't want to then harm them. But you have to be consistent with your punishments. But obviously, I don't know the level of detail about what's happened with Everton and how it compares to the 100 charges that Man City have. But it seems like they're laying down a gauntlet to sort of say, okay, we're going to be harsh on this sort of thing from now on. But the fact that they've done it for Everton for one charge before they've sorted out the absolute mess that's been hanging over City for quite a while, it's that raises a few questions, really. And the fact that it was so sudden, and so usually as things go for appeal before they actually get brought about, but it was like, no, this decision 10 points, you can appeal, but we're going to turn it around pretty quick, which they have to, because other teams plan their season around the place in the table you are. So you can't have a relegation battle which suddenly on the last day you give Everton 10 points back and it relegates a different team. That's completely unacceptable. So they have to do it like that. But I don't know what this means for the long run. But if City just get away with a little slap on the wrists, whatever the detail there, it's going to leave a bad taste in the mouth for some people.
Well, it's about half a point per million, isn't it? That's the precedent they've now set. I think Everton were around 20 million difference that got them done, and that's what they're guilty for. So I would assume City's is going to be much larger. So as long as it's half a point per million they breached, all fair, right?
It's one of those, isn't it? I suppose the bigger you are as a club, the more your player sales are going to be, and it works in both directions. If you're spending 100 million on someone like Jack Grealish, but you're selling 3 of the players for 30 odd million, you're breaking even, aren't you? That's the
Supposed to be the same rules for all of us, though.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
But Man City also do this nonsense whereby they sell their ground to one of their other companies for, oh, yeah, we'll sell that to them for £1 billion. And then you've moved that money from there to there, but that's revenue you can use against that. And that's those sorts of things, which I think a few clubs have taken advantage of as well. So it's not a level playing field. And we've said before, financial fair play is not there to make it fair. Let's get that out of the way. It's there to just, keep teams afloat, I would say, rather than anything, and keep the status quo intact, to be honest.
Oh, the top end, Jack, it's literally legal money laundering, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, Harry, what do you think? Because I mean, the whole Saudi Pro League is probably thrown a little bit out of whack, because I guess if you have a fairly decent asset at your club now and you're teetering on FFP, then in that final year where you can't make that £105 million loss in total over the last 3, you must be going, well, let's cash it in now. And then that solves all our problems.
Yeah, definitely. And City, I think it's over 10 years they'll be investigated for. So they've done a lot of that, haven't they? They've done a lot of shady things. They've got amazing lawyers. They've got very clever people running their club, and they're still trying to get away from it now. Chelsea are also, they got charged by UEFA for doing dodgy stuff, but the Premier League haven't done anything. And thankfully, Wolves got away with it. But Everton were warned, apparently. They were warned in the build-up. Everton agreed to stop, and they didn't. They thought that because of the interest and all that rubbish, there's so many like minor little details. They actually lost 300 million, not 125. Because of all this other stuff they did, it went down to 125. But they thought they were going to get away with it, and they haven't. And if it had happened to Wolves, I'd have been gutted, to be honest. So, if fair play to Jeff, and that was what the original point was about. And I think they've had good criticism. They've deserved it, Jeff, and that the last few years they've made some bad decisions, but this gets a bit of credit back in their bank and gets some fans off their back a bit, I guess.
Certainly does. Let's move on to expressandstar.com. And I think if you noticed, maybe a couple of months ago, there was a big drive to, I think actually, I don't know how often any of you lot go on the website, but there was a noticeable change a couple of months ago where it moved away from looking like a crap regional news website to something that was a little bit slicker, a little bit smarter. And now they're starting to charge for a plus membership. Harry, I don't know how often you use it. I don't know the ins and outs. I know probably, is it maybe 30% of the articles fall under this? But it seemed to have got a lot of backlash from people who use the service. I just want to get your thoughts to begin with.
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to ask just because I don't read articles really, because I can't read. No, I'm joking. But I do, I've listened to...
it's a drawback.
I've listened to their podcast. I think I used to listen to their podcast. I'd never read The Athletic and things like that, but I think it's a really bad move to charge people to read their content. Like, they might think they're really good, and they probably are, and I'm sure it's the powers that be that have made the decision. Obviously not Judah, Liam, etc. But it's a really bad look, isn't it? I mean, The Athletic put it down, their subscription down to £1 at one point because they were so desperate. But the thing is, like, there's a lot of there's a lot of shit out there now. And they're like, we do this. There's a lot of fan content. It's not all good, obviously. People might think this is shit, but there's so much to watch now for free. So to start charging just doesn't sit right with me personally. I think it's a bad move. It'd be interesting to see how many subscribers they get. It went down like a lead balloon, like you said. And when you've got people at the Express and Star as well pretending to be Wolves fans when they don't even like Wolves, I'm not paying to read something that someone writes who's not even a Wolves fan. He's just pretending to be and acts like a bit. Yeah, there we go. I won't say anymore.
It's also still got adverts as well, which is slightly weird.
Well, I suppose they pretty go away if you pay. I would bring Bayliss in first then.
It's just the problem that the dying old print media is having, right? It's a bit of a shame, really, because I always remember growing up, we'd always have the Express and Star and the pink paper on a Saturday with the football scores in and stuff. But it's had its time. I mean, the guys, their podcast's great, right? They're pretty close to the club, so they get some really good information and they do it well, but they're doing it on the same platform as we are. Whereas on their print side of things, their digital side of things, don't know. It's obviously not paying for itself, is it? Because they've got to put it behind a paywall now.
Chat.
It's an interesting move. I mean, when you think about it, like you say, obviously the Express and Stars circulation is not going to be anywhere near it was in terms of paper sales. I remember, like when we were kids, it was a thing. Like your dad used to have an Express and Star every day, and that just doesn't happen now because people are getting older. Older people, I think, tend to buy actual newspapers. I can't remember the last time I actually bought a newspaper that maybe the Racing Post, and that's not even a newspaper, is it really? So it's just something we don't need to go and get that paper to consume the information, because every scoop you get now, it's not as if you're paying the Express and Star for their insider knowledge, I don't think, because every scoop now is broken on Twitter before they even know what's going on, usually. So that's the place you can go to get the actual finger on the pulse sort of information about every club and not just Wolves. But the thing that was surprising for me is that the price point of it is quite expensive, wasn't it? It's like 40-something quid a year. 40-something pound a year. My Netflix is $4.99 a month.
Yeah.
Like, and that's like, you know, similar comparison level, isn't it, really? And the amount of entertainment you get for that compared to a certain selection of articles about Wolves, like, I get they have to do it because, you know, the ads flowing through the website through clicks is obviously not paying for it, with the print sales going down. And you think about it, they've got 2 full-time members of staff there just reporting on Wolves pretty much that they're paying. And it's obviously getting to the point where it's just not sustainable. So they're having to try other stuff. It's never going to go down well. Personally, I don't use the website that much at all. So it wouldn't appeal to me. I think it might appeal to a few listeners who I'm guessing, readers, who would probably, let's be honest, most likely be of the older generation. But I can't see that many people paying for it. And I don't think the uptake's going to be high, because you can get, like you say, so much choice and better stuff for free with your money. And if
Jack,
you want to pay for your money, you can get more stuff. But
I don't think you're right, Jack, because the older demographic still engage with this. I mean, we sadly, everyone listening, we look at our YouTube stats, and it's mostly a load of old bastards that listen to us. So
it's mostly Dan's dad. Without destroying the entire audience, Dan.
I was joking.
But let's go. Like the cost of it, though, because there's a 2-year plan on there, which is apparently down from $124.99 for the 2 years down to $85.99. You know, it's a big expenditure in one go. You got the best offer, which is $42.99 down from $69.99, and then the monthly, which is billed monthly, is $5.99. So interestingly, the podcast seems to be behind the paywall. So
that's why they've done it. Then maybe
it's not Sam.
Okay,
it's definitely not behind the paywall. The podcast will be free. I did see that.
Well, I'm on the podcast now, and it says,
"Oh, I'm sure Judah said on Twitter that it's still free." The podcast.
I'll give you some advice. Do a short podcast for free, and then do the longer one behind the paywall. That would be my.
Do you reckon that's what they do?
I reckon that's what they should do, because I mean, cutting off your content or cutting it off completely is a poor move.
We aren't doing that, listeners, because you're.
There is no paywall here.
No, listen. I listen to podcasts a lot driving around, and I would not pay for even my most favourite podcasts. They earn enough from ads and that, don't they? The big ones.
Really?
So don't be greedy. Oh yeah, the podcast game. That's what everyone does a podcast these days. The popular people. They all do a podcast because the bloody revenue on adverts for podcasts is through the roof. We know that just from the adverts we get on Spotify.
I was going to say,
compare the two. Compare the two. It's you get way more money for, I don't know, for 500 views on audio. You get way more money than for 500 views on YouTube. Way more. It's ridiculous.
Makes no sense. But yeah,
I don't know, Harry. If Fight Disciples went behind a paywall, you'd pay.
I wouldn't. I'd tell him to suck a fat.
But would you be more likely to pay rather than saying, okay, here's 120 quid for 2 years, 99p an episode, or something like that? Like, that's a bit more manageable, isn't it? That's the thing. It's the price point that's really confused me, because comparing it to other subscription services, it just seems quite high when all you're getting is 30% of the Wolves articles. And I mean, what articles are behind this paywall? Can you pick a few out? Like, what are the titles?
Liam Key's match reports,
premium content,
player ratings, I guess. Yeah,
player ratings, which you can get from anywhere on Twitter or other papers like national media outlets, I'm guessing. Like,
so for argument's sake, now they've got an exclusive Wolves exploring deal for Wonder Kid goalkeeper. Wolves are exploring a possible £2 million deal for Wonder Kid Rome Jaden Owusu-Aduro. The Expression Star understands. So I guess
you've got the story for free there.
The whole story in 2 sentences, and then go, do you want to read the full story? I mean, how much more of a story is there to tell? apart from going
Like,
on his
see,
Wikipedia
like, I
page.
think,
It makes no sense
I
whatsoever.
think Liam, by the way, Liam Keane, like I think he's really good. I think he's really good. I like Liam, but a lot of their stuff, like Jack pointed out earlier, they are doing a lot of guessing work as well. They do have contacts within the club, but the club don't give out so much these days. So they do just look at Twitter and just rehash whatever Fabrizio's put or John Percy at the Telegraph.
Yeah.
So if you want to pay anyone, pay them because they're the ones who get all the scoops.
But it's weird,
That's
though,
just
isn't
the
it?
brutal
Because
honesty of it, isn't it?
the Telegraph is behind a paywall. So
and no one reads
Yeah,
that.
but not. But again, but they tweet the articles like with the information you need. You get the headline.
Yeah.
As soon as it says deal for blah blah for £30 million to Wolves, you know the story. You don't need the extra context.
This article is one I would pay to watch. This is so weird. Former Wolves star denies verbally abusing young referee as under 12s game abandoned.
Carl Henry.
Take my money.
There you go.
That's what the 60 quid a year is for.
Trevor says, sounds like Jack wants to charge £1. Martin wants to buy Harry a pint.
We will never ever charge for our content, but you can buy us a pint.
Especially in the North Bank bar. I'm still getting over the fact it was £7.20 a pint. Unbelievable.
What?
Right, okay. I know.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. It's
Yeah,
fake news.
£28.80 in the WV. What's it called, Harry? Where do we go? I don't even know. It's WV1. No, where
What
is
are
it?
you drinking?
North Bank bar.
North Bank bar. Okay, yeah.
So not the bar in the North Bank, but like next.
Yeah.
to it.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Right. Have we got any more groups of people to offend, or shall we go?
No, I don't think so. You've done a sterling job. Congratulations.
Thank you. Good evening.
Right, we will say goodbye to Harry Mansell.
Bye bye.
The ageist Daniel Bayliss. Goodbye. Jack Williams.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
And Martin says he's going to buy me a pint as well. So it's a goodbye from me.